Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty. Shake your booty.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Null. Nice to have you with us today. We're going to find out how cacao, which is dark chocolate, and the polyphenols in that dark chocolate can enhance your cognitive function. National Institute of Genomic Medicine in Mexico. We have about 10 other pieces to also share with you today. Keep in mind, we share more original information from peer-reviewed literature on health and healing than any other radio program in the world, and have for 53 years, and counting, and we never run out of information. Also today, I'll be doing a commentary, my own, but also one from Chris Hedges. And I think you'll find it very informative, interesting, because it deals with issues that we're not coming to grips with today, and we need to. So I'll share that with you a little later on, and then I'll open it up for you to call in and share your points of view. We'd like to hear what you have to say on these topics. So that's coming at you also today. Then our videos today, we have a piece of advice from Sergeant Joe Friday. Remember him? It's 50 years old, but boy, could it be just as valuable today to young people as it was back then. We're going to play that. Then we're going to hear from a professor who voted for Hillary Clinton. This was sent to me by Steve Brown, one of our listeners, early this morning. And he said, Gary, this is very important. Indeed it is, because this very liberal professor is saying that Google is manipulating voters on a massive scale to go for the Democrats. And he finds that that is wrong, even though he's a Democrat, voted for Hillary Clinton. This is information we were not aware of. Now we are. But then the head of Google was grilled by Senator Hawley on what it was doing, manipulating in favor of one candidate or group over another, which it's not supposed to do. So I thought you'd find those of interest as well. I don't know how much more time we'll have, but at least we'll get to those. We always begin with the latest on health and healing. According to news reporting from Mexico, journalists did a report that the, quote, effects of cacao-derived polyphenols on cognitive functions have been analyzed through numerous studies using different interventions, and shows that can end up improving our cognition. I would say 2 ounces a day. That's a small amount. Get the ones that don't have the processed sugar or dairy in them. Real quality, organic chocolate, ideally 70%. That's not too bitter. It's not too sweet. You're in the therapeutic range when you're doing it at 70%. From Boston University School of Medicine comes a study. They've identified a link between decreased depression symptoms and using yoga and the neurotransmitter GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, a natural supplement that we've been talking about for decades here. So here's what it means in lay language, according to Boston University School of Medicine. The benefits of yoga have been widely documented, thousands of studies on it, but previously it was not clear as to how yoga exerts its physiological effects. Now, a new study from Boston University School of Medicine proposes that yoga can increase levels of gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, in the short term, and completing one yoga class per week, just one, can maintain elevated GABA that could mitigate depressive symptoms. Now, you heard me mention on yesterday's program that depression is highly prevalent, and it's also disabling. According to the World Health Organization, depression affects over 16 million people minimally in the United States every year, and it's the leading cause of disability worldwide. Given its high morbidity, extensive research has been done on effective treatment modalities. Unfortunately, most of that has been with different types of drugs. I'm opposed to those. But when you look at what you can do using music therapy, sound and healing, greening, meaning being outdoors, being near nature, going on hikes, boating, all of those can help with depression. So, something new. From the University of Liverpool, mushrooms can help alleviate pre-eclampsia. And that's important because pre-eclampsia is a complex disorder of pregnancy that can have potentially serious consequences for women and their babies. There's currently no cure in orthodoxy for pre-eclampsia other than delivery, which can present a major medical problem if the condition results in extremely premature birth. Now, scientists from the University of Liverpool and the University College Cork have shown that a natural diet-derived substance can alleviate some of the features of this condition. Let me spell it for you. Use the letter L-ergo, E-R-G-O, theanine, Thioneine. That's important. Something natural, non-toxic, and can help. From Tianjin Medical University in China, published in the peer-reviewed Journal of Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity, folic acid could counteract the effects of sleep deprivation. Now, we knew all the other things like theanine and 5-hydroxytryptophan. Those really work, but now we can add this to it, folic acid. There's a new report on this that it's a member of the B complex, and it's used principally in suppression of telomere damage and senescence associated with inflammation induced by sleep deprivation. Yeah, if you didn't know it, when you're not getting a good night's sleep, sleeping through the whole night, then you are damaging your cells. You are going into senescence with some of those cells, meaning they're so inflamed that they're dying. So, that's one of the ways that we can help ourselves with folic acid about 2 hours before you go to bed. From Griffith University, which is in Australia, time spent in nature will save $6 trillion globally in mental health care costs. Yeah. So if you're stressed, if you're frustrated, if you're feeling down, if you're anxious, if you're having a hard time sleeping, then the remedy, at least one, you've been waiting for is to soothe and comfort you, to bring you relief, calmness, and happiness. And the best part, it's absolutely free and available to all wherever you want to be. So, it's nature. That's correct. Researchers from Griffith University have concluded that time spent in natural parks and protected areas saves approximately $6 trillion globally in mental health care costs. And the lead author, Ralph Buckley, feels that although this is a conservative estimate, it is still 10 times greater than the global value of park tourism and 100 times greater than the global value of park agency budgets. So, what can we do? What if you live in the inner city? What if you don't have the money or resources and you don't, maybe you're too old or too frail to be able to travel easily? A couple things you can do. We could start to work inside of every community in any inner city neighborhood and to green it. How so? It's relatively simple. We work with some celebrities, and depending upon the neighborhood, it might be a Caucasian neighborhood, it might be a Latino, it might be African American, Native American, whatever it is. Get some of the more prominent people who came from that environment to give something back. Hopefully they've given back. But this is relatively easy for them to do, because when you suddenly have a celebrity appearing before a town council or state legislative body or federal government, it gets immediate attention. So working with a nonprofit that someone could start, where it's guaranteed at the beginning and put into the charter that 90%, 90 cents out of every dollar raised will go towards the project, not towards administrative fees like with the American Red Cross. I wouldn't give a nickel to the American Red Cross. Right now they're withholding money, just like they did with Haiti, for the bushfire victims in Australia. They're good at doing this. You know, they took in hundreds of millions of dollars in Haiti and they built 6 little houses with it. The rest went into their administrative fund. In any case, so now you've got some people who are prominent in that community, from the community, and therefore can speak on its behalf. And you get a committee together, and you designate the area that you'd like to see the city or the state or the federal government clear that property and then do a design for green space in its place, where you could have a water feature with ducks or swans. You could have a greenhouse, hydroponics, multi-storied, that could feed all of the people in the community, and the senior citizens or churches, synagogues, or mosques could get extra food for free to help their congregates. You could have classes in soil management and environmentalism and conservationism. And it would be a wonderful place. You could bring in some artists and design tiered gardens, rose gardens, aromatic gardens, so people could go from their apartments right over there in their own neighborhood to a park. And you could have security. Yes, so vandals or those who choose not to appreciate what we all share in common and how to respect it. But at least it would be there for everyone in that community. Now, once you started that, and after a year, it's growing, and we see this on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. In fact, when I was going across the George Washington Bridge on the way to the airport to fly out of town 4 months ago, I saw no less, just on 124th Street, just the one block you go to on the east side to get onto the bridge, I saw 2 community gardens. So we have them around. On the Upper West Side, we have at least 4, probably more, but 4 that I'm aware of, that anybody can go into, that are nicely kept, that people, especially retirees, go to. In Riverside Park, at the north end of Riverside Park, around 94th Street, 93rd Street, there is a garden. It's just got a little fence, 4-foot fence. Inside there are hundreds of different varieties of flowers and shrubs, and it's all voluntary. People go there and maintain it throughout the season. And since I do a lot of running over there, every morning when I'm in there, rather than in Central Park, I can smell all those wonderful aromatic plants, and you can sit on a bench and just enjoy it. So you see, we can do a lot of greening and help ourselves de-stress, and that's good. Just an idea. From Cha University and Busan National University in South Korea, kimchi, Kim, K-I-M, chi, C-H-I, it's one of the world's most popular fermented foods, but also, if you eat it daily, it can significantly impact your cancer risk. Yeah. A new study in the Onco-Target journal titled Dietary Prevention of Helicobacter, that's your stomach cancer, pylori, associated gastric cancer with kimchi, and it's just the latest study to show that it has a powerful anti-cancer effect. Now, mind you, gastric or stomach cancer is the 3rd leading cause of death from cancer. That's important. It's the 5th most commonly diagnosed form. It's believed that Helicobacter pylori, or what we call H. pylori, H is simply short for Helicobacter, Helicobater. It's an infection, and it's a primary cause through smoking, through nitrates in food like your hamburgers, hot dogs, bacon, the meats on pizzas. A lot of cured meats have it. Aspirin has it. And and then not having enough fruits and vegetables, it contributes to the multifactorial condition. You end up with cancer. So kimchi, the traditional Korean fermented cabbage, not unlike sauerkraut, though spicier, could prevent Helicobacter-induced atrophic gastritis, which is a chronic inflammation of the stomach mucosa, and subsequently gastric cancer. So, something to think about. I remember years ago, I have a photograph of this gentleman and myself sitting on a couch in his office, and we were talking about a report. And the report we were doing on was how the Romanovs were not assassinated, and we actually had proof of that. And I had interviewed all of the what were called White Russians. These were direct, immediate family members of the royal family. And there was a Miss Kropotkin up in Connecticut who was, I'm guessing at the time I was about 25, she was probably 75. So she was there before the revolution of 1918. She was there in Russia. She was all of these people were related. They all lived up in Bedford, Connecticut. And they talked about how they escaped. And then Peter Bessel and a member of Parliament and a lot of other people were agreeing after we showed them the research. In any case, that's a separate issue. Interesting, I want to get back to that at some point. That's one of my fun little pet projects. But in any case, he had a lot of problems with his stomach. He had ulcers. And when we were sitting there talking, he would frequently cough, and he would take out this white handkerchief and cough into the handkerchief, and I could see there was blood. And he'd be taking different medications. And one day, when I went over, I took a quart of just plain cabbage juice. I juiced that cabbage that morning. I said, would you be willing to try this? He said, what is it? I said, just cabbage juice. He said, what is it for? I said, well, there's no scientific literature on it that I can find, but coming up in West Virginia, there was a person who used natural remedies, and this is what I was told you use if you have stomach cancer or ulcers. He said, okay. So he used it. 2 weeks later, I saw him. He said, it's just wonderful. I'm no longer coughing. I no longer had the pain, and I've stopped the medication. And 3 months later, he had no inflammation, nothing at all in his stomach. At that point, he was taking 3 16-ounce glasses of raw cabbage juice a day. That's one way you can do it. And you can also take sauerkraut juice as well. If you take sauerkraut juice, just take a little extra potassium each day, like a tall glass of coconut water. In any case, the kimchi downregulates what we call the inflammatory enzyme cytooxygenase 2, and it reduces the macrophage infiltration into the damaged mucosal tissue, and it reduces interleukin-6, that's a chemical messenger associated with increased inflammation, and it reduces STAT3 activation, and which has been linked to cancer. So it does all these wonderful things. So, something more that can help people, especially people. And I would always take it with flaxseed oil, by the way. Flaxseed oil with the carotenoids are good as well. Also, well, I'm looking now, we're almost, we are 19 minutes into our program. I've got so many things I want to share with you. One last one. From Francis Crick Institute, cruciferous vegetables help the immune system to fight intestinal pathogens. So a laboratory study showed that eating your vegetables, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, asparagus, mustard, helps the immune system to fight intestinal pathogens. And that's important. That can really help people with inflammatory bowel diseases. So, why? A protein called aryl, A-R-Y-L, hydrocarbon receptor plays a crucial role in protecting us from external pollutants, intoxicants, and pathogens as barrier sites in our body, such as your skin, your lungs, and your gut. Well, studying the role of this AHR, that's abbreviated, In the gut, scientists at the Francis Crick Institute have discovered that another protein, known as CYP1A1, regulates immunity in the gut by providing feedback signaling by degrading the molecules that activate the AHR lignans. However, too much can deplete the lignans altogether. This could result in susceptibility to bacteria like pathogens like E. coli, for example. Have you ever noticed those who have a lot of probiotics and prebiotics rarely get food poisoning, rarely get sick to their stomach because they've got a strong immune system, including in the intestine? So this is just one more way that we can help our body and help our gut and help the good bacteria. This, by the way, was published in the most respected peer-reviewed journal in the world, and that's Nature magazine. So, the takeaway message: eat your cruciferous vegetables. Have a stronger immune system. We are now 20 minutes into our program. I'm Gary Null. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go to a short clip. It's only about 4 minutes, and this short clip is going to remind those of us who are baby boomers what it was like a long time ago when we were getting lessons. Back in a moment.
Vision in the country, or that everybody else is fat and selfish and you're the first generation to come along that's felt dissatisfied. They all have, you know, about different things, and most of them didn't have the same opportunity and freedoms that you do. Let's talk poverty. Most places in the world, that's not a problem. It's a way of life. And rights, they're liable to give you a blank stare because they may not know what you're talking about. The fact is, more people are living better right here than anywhere else ever before in history. So don't expect us to roll over and play dead when you say you're dissatisfied. It's not perfect, but it's a great deal better than when we grew up. 100 men standing in the street hoping for one job, selling apples on the street corner. That's one of the things we were dissatisfied about, and you don't see that much anymore.
You're taller, stronger, healthier, better educated, and you live longer than the last generation. And we don't think that's altogether bad. You've probably never seen a quarantine sign on your neighbor's door. Diphtheria, scarlet fever, whooping cough. Probably none of your classmates are crippled with polio. You don't see many mastoid scars anymore. We've done quite a bit of fighting all around the world. Whether you think it was moral or not, a lot of people are free today to make their own mistakes because of it. And that may just include you.
I don't know. Maybe part of it's the fact that you're in a hurry. You've grown up on instant orange juice. Flip a dial, instant entertainment. Dial 7 digits, instant communication. Turn a key, push a pedal, instant transportation. Flash a card, instant money. Shove in a problem, push a few buttons, instant answers. But some problems you can't get quick answers to, no matter how much you want them. We took a little boy into Central Receiving Hospital yesterday. He was 4 years old. He weighs 8.5 pounds. His parents just haven't bothered to feed him. Now, give me a fast answer to that one. One that'll stop that from ever happening again. And if you can't settle that one, what about the 55,000 Americans who will die on the highways this year? That's nearly 6 or 7 times the number that'll get killed in Vietnam. Why aren't you up in arms about that? Or is dying in a car somehow moral? Tell me how to wipe out prejudice. I'll settle for just the prejudices you have inside yourselves. Show me how to get rid of the unlimited capacity for human beings to make themselves believe that they're somehow right and justified in stealing from somebody or hurting somebody. And you'll just about put this place here out of business.
I don't think that we're telling you to lose your ideals or your sense of outrage. They're the only way things ever get done. And there's a lot that still needs doing. And we hope you'll tackle it. You don't have to do anything dramatic like trying to come up with a better country. You can find enough to keep you busy right here. While you're at it, don't break things up in the name of progress or crack a placard stick over somebody's head to help him see the light. Be careful of his rights, because your property and your person and your rights aren't any better than his. And next time, you may be the one to get it. We remember a man who killed 6 million people and called it social improvement.
So hang in. Don't try to build a new country. Make the old one work. It has for over 400 years, and by the world's standards, that's hardly more than yesterday.
Pretty good advice. Pretty good advice. Though the question is, we know some young people are listening, but they're the minority. Here's my question for you. Why is it that the majority of young people today seem lost, disconnected from the real meaning of their own lives? I'd like your feedback. And why we want to tear down the world we have rather than try to rebuild it in a way that, with more equality, that is safer, more user-friendly at every level, instead of trying just to keep voting back in the same politicians, right or left is irrelevant, who betray us. Look at how the Democrats betrayed Bernie Sanders again in last night's caucus. Was that Russia? No. That was those in power that are beholding to Wall Street, Big Pharma, the chemical industry, the subsidies by the hundreds of billions each year from the petroleum industry. That's who's behind Biden, behind Warren, and of course was behind Hillary Clinton. And they're uncertain about Bernie Sanders. He's just too much of a populist. He's too progressive for them. So one more effort against him. Shouldn't we have more progressive people in office who are there not as career politicians, who are there representing us with multiple parties? I'd like to hear your thoughts. 888-874-4888. 888-874-4888. Now, here's that piece that Steve Brown, my friend, sent me. A liberal professor who voted for Hillary Clinton, but he excoriates Google for manipulating voters on a massive scale. And why isn't that of concern? Because this is the same Google who now wants to use Wikipedia to source the truth in all things. They will be the final arbiters, the screeners of what is real and what is not. And Elizabeth Warren says she believes people should be going to jail, and it should be a crime if you give false information out. But if you give information that says organic is better and you have the science, they can say it's false. The vaccines are neither safe nor effective at this time. They can say that's false. The GMOs are not equal to organic. They can say that's false. Virtually everything that the complementary and alternative movement and its hundreds of thousands of clinicians and hundreds of millions of patients believe and have seen firsthand are true, they would say it's false. So think of the company, Google, and its parent company, Alphabet, people who have no background or experience whatsoever in real life. But boy, they're the kings of Silicon Valley, and they dictate what we should read, should hear, should see, and they censor everything else and everyone else. And that's not of concern? You bet it's a concern. Now let's hear what this professor has to say.
You're not a Republican, and nor are you a conservative. Is that accurate?
That would be an understatement.
And indeed, you're the former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today.
Correct.
So you're a respected academic. You testified before this committee that Google's manipulation of votes gave at least 2.6 million additional votes to Hillary Clinton in the year 2016. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I want to make sure I understand. You personally supported and voted for Hillary Clinton.
I was a very strong public supporter of Hillary Clinton, yes.
So you're not dismayed that people voted for her, but your testimony is that Google is, through bias in search results, manipulating voters in a way they're not aware of.
On a massive scale. And what I'm saying is that I believe in democracy, I believe in the free and fair election, more than I have any kind of allegiance to a candidate or a party.
And looking forward, if I understood your testimony correctly, you said in subsequent elections, Google and Facebook and Twitter and big text manipulation could manipulate as many as 15 million votes in a subsequent election?
In 2020, if all these companies are supporting the same candidate, there are 15 million votes on the line that can be shifted without people's knowledge and without leaving a paper trail for authorities to trace.
Now, you described the Go Vote reminder, and you said it wasn't a public service announcement, but rather manipulation. Can you explain how? I'm not sure everyone followed the details of that.
Well, sure. If on Election Day in 2016, if Mark Zuckerberg, for example, had chosen to send out a Go Vote reminder, say just to Democrats, and no one would have known if he had done this, that would have given that day an additional at least 450,000 votes to Democrats. And we know this without doubt because of Facebook's own published data, because they did an experiment that they didn't tell anyone about during the 2010 election. They published it in 2012. It had 60 million Facebook users involved. They sent out a Go Vote reminder, and they got something like 360,000 more people to get off their sofas and go vote who otherwise would have stayed home. The point is, I don't think that Mr. Zuckerberg sent out that reminder in 2016. I think he was overconfident. I think Google was overconfident. All these companies were. I don't think he sent that out. Without monitoring systems in place, we'll never know what these companies are doing. But the point is, in 2018, I'm sure they were more aggressive. We have lots of data to support that. And in 2020, you can bet that all of these companies are going to go all out. And the methods that they're using are invisible. They're subliminal. They're more powerful than most any effects I've ever seen in the behavioral sciences. And I've been in the behavioral sciences for almost 40 years.
You know, our Democratic colleagues on this committee often talk about what they view as the pernicious effect of big money and big corporate dollars. What you are testifying to is that a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires and giant corporations are able to spend millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars collectively, massively influencing the results of elections. And there's no accountability. You said, we don't know. We have no way of knowing if Google or Facebook or Twitter sends it to Democrats or Republicans, or how they bias it, because it's a black box with no transparency or accountability whatsoever. Am I understanding you correctly?
Senator, with respect, I must correct you.
Please.
If Mark Zuckerberg chooses to send out a Go Vote reminder just to Democrats on Election Day, that doesn't cost him a dime.
Fair enough. Do you happen to know who the Hillary Clinton campaign's #1 financial supporter was in the year 2016?
I think I do, but please remind me.
The #1 financial supporter of the Hillary Clinton campaign in the 2016 election was the parent company of Google, Alphabet, who was our first witness. They were her #1 financial donor, and your testimony is, through their deceptive search methods, they moved 2.6 million votes in her direction. I would think anybody, whether or not you favor one candidate or another, should be deeply dismayed about a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires having that much power over our elections to silently and deceptively shift vote outcomes.
Again, with respect, I must correct you. The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million, depending on how aggressively they used the techniques that I've been studying now for 6.5 years.
Wow. Could you say that again, please?
The 2.6 million is a rock bottom minimum. The range is between 2.6 and 10.4 million votes, depending on how aggressive they were in using the techniques that I've been studying, such as the search engine manipulation effect, the search suggestion effect, the answer bot effect, and a number of others. They control these, and no one can counteract them. These are not competitive. These are tools that they have at their disposal exclusively.
If any headline comes out of this hearing, that should be it.
Okay. Now, let's just say that you're not into the politics. You've decided just to withdraw your energy. Hopefully that's not the case, but let's just say it is. But you do have a friend that has cancer, and they've been diagnosed as terminal cancer. And you want to see, is there anything in the natural and alternative field that may work, like Dr. Brzezinski or Livingston Wheeler or Issels? And you Google alternative cancer therapies. Google will take you directly to the orthodox information on cancer, and then on to Wikipedia that will denounce all alternative cancer therapies as quackery. And they do this with every single thing involving alternatives. All alternative therapy. That's why I'm doing this series, and will continue to do so. So you see, everything like this is interconnected. Now, will you find Chris Hedges on Google? No, you will not. In fact, 200 plus of the finest minds on the planet have been stripped of forums. They've been censored, even demonized. That's how you only have one group of people, whether left or right, both supported by the same group of powerful people behind the scenes. That's unfortunate. By the way, for those who have been calling, Luann says, please do not call at this time. We had a 2-hour conference call on Saturday for the 100 plus people who wanted to be in the new study who had been screened already. But once I told them what would be expected and what it would be like, and I said, Luann, the people are most likely to attend and be right for the program, good match, in the anti-aging study would be those who see how important this is to them in their own lives, as well as being a part of something as historic. I mean, could you imagine being in a study that is the first study that would ever have been done that proves scientifically with objective criteria? In fact, this time we're actually doing a separate methylation test, which is just, I was asked to do by a group of scientists in anti-aging medicine. And you could say, I was in that study. I was one of the original people in the first anti-aging clinical study ever done. Not one on just stem cells, not one on $1 million for a single injection done down in Colombia, not one where it's $50,000 to be in Spain at a clinic for 2 months and get none of the stuff we're doing. No, a historic study. But more importantly, it's a study for those who are going to be in it, and we've given until tomorrow at 9 a.m. to decide if this is right for them or not right for them. I don't want people in it who are not going to follow up on it. I need people who are really going to be committed to it. It's not a boot camp. No one's going to yell at you. We're there in a fun, upbeat, joyful, laughing manner to show all the things we can learn and apply, and actually apply them for 60 days. In any case, if not enough people who were on the call, who had all been pre-screened, decide not to make it, then she will come on the air tomorrow and announce how many seats she has open. We have to limit it because we have to match the previous study. So this is our follow-up gold standard. And I'll be there, and we have a wonderful staff. So, but some people have asked, they have some experience as a chef, or it's a vegan chef position, but she'll be talking with you on that tomorrow. In any case, one of the things that I lecture to the group is that by the way, I was just told that let's make sure that our 888-874, 888-874-4888, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. I haven't forgotten you. We have some people online. I want to have Ronald up in just a moment, but I just want to mention this. Hopefully this makes some sense to you. And that is this. We live by other people's notions of what our responsibility should be at different levels in our lives to them. Initially, it's our parents, and then it's our aunts and uncles and grandparents. It's our school teachers. In college, it's our professors. In the workplace, it's the culture of the workplace, as well as the hierarchical structure of who is above us, and we're always trying to get someone's attention to the quality of what we're doing. People love positive feedback. But we constrict ourselves until one day we're fully compliant to a very conditioned model. Not that there is any intention to train your mind or make you an obedient citizen, but rather it comes as a result of saying yes to everyone else's needs and expectations until one day you're so responsible for so many other people and so many other things you don't ask yourself, why can't they be responsible at this point? Why am I carrying the responsibility for other people? Do I not have the right to a life? Then you start to question yourself, and then you have guilt in the front of you, shame in the behind you. You have insecurity on one side and uncertainty on the other side. Well, which door are you supposed to open and be free? All four sides that you've been blocked in with by your conditioning by other people and that you've accepted, you've become maladaptive. So you just keep doing the same thing and hoping for less stress today than you had yesterday. Do you look at what is real and what is illusion? Rarely, if ever. Should we? You bet we should. Chris Hedges takes us on that journey because we have become a country that believes in the image, the illusion, rather than reality. I know that firsthand because I see people walking the red carpet. I see the Super Bowl that's more about J-Lo than the unique comeback that the Kansas City Chiefs did in making up, 20-some points in 7 minutes. One of the most remarkable comebacks in the history of the Super Bowl. And how did that happen? And Andy Reid finally getting the credit he deserves as a great coach. But it's not about Andy Reid. It's not about the team. It's not about the unique performances working together. It's about J-Lo, her performance. It's about the commercials. It's about Nike and the other athletic sponsors who really control sports in the United States. So no matter which team wins, they win because they've given so much money to the different superstars. It's all an illusion. What would happen if every athlete had to, and every was required to, and every journalist was made to wear emblems on their body of who they are really taking orders from? The journalists would be the deep state and the CIA, the National Security Advisory, and all these other people that they get information from, and in return screen their stories and edit out anything that the establishment, the deep state, would be offended by. If you had a politician show you all the money they've collected since being in office, and there was no more room on their body, they had to put labels on the bottom of their shoes, then you think, my God, you're so compromised. But we don't show the compromise within anything. Not in the media, not in the stories, not in Wikipedia, not in Google, not on Facebook, nothing. We only show the illusion. So it's only when you see the reality can we do something positive and constructive. For example, I support the message of Greta Thunberg completely. I do not support her parents nor the gigantic public relations machine behind her that has manipulated everything. Finally, the stories are coming out. We've searched for them, we found them, like the scene of her sitting on the floor in a train reading. No. Then look, the reality was she was in first class in a compartment and all this plasticized junk food and other plastic food was there. Why didn't we see that? Would she be criticized for all that plastic? Or how much it actually cost to go back and forth across America in a multi-million-dollar yacht where the crew had to fly back and forth? It's all illusion. It's all image. But we don't want to know the truth because the truth would disappoint us, especially if we saw the real intellect of a Donald Trump or George Bush. We'd be offended. Nobody can be that stupid. Yeah, they can. No, nobody can be that dishonest. Yeah, they are. And nobody can be that smart like Bill and Hillary Clinton and Obama and yet be so manipulative. Yeah, they were. There's an article today about the people in Libya being depressed, chronically depressed, 1/3 of the entire nation of Libya. People are being held for their body organs being removed. They're being sold in open slave markets. Why isn't anyone, not a single person in the media, calling out Obama, the Justice Department, and Hillary Clinton? Because it was their invasion. Libya was not a threat to anyone. And Gaddafi was not a dictator. For the previous 4 years, everything was run by decentralized committees. You don't want to hear the truth. We want the illusion. We want the illusion that there are bad people out there and we're the good people and we're exceptional. It's not the truth. And what happens if courtrooms across the country look at the poor people or people of color, the justice is different. What is happening in the Senate is a trial, ending, I guess, tomorrow. If the blood-drenched debacles and endless quagmires in the Middle East are victories in the war on terror, our military is the greatest on earth. If the wholesale government surveillance of the public, the revoking of due process, and having the world's largest prison population are liberty, we're the land of the free. If the president, an inept, vulgar, corrupt con artist, is the leader of the free world, we are a beacon of democracy, and our enemies hate us for our values. If Jesus came to make us rich, bless the annihilation of Muslims by our war machine, and condemn homosexuality and abortion, we are a Christian nation. If formalizing an apartheid state in Israel is a peace plan, we're an honest international mediator. If a meritocracy means that 3 American men have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the U.S. population, we are the land of opportunity. If the torture and kidnapping of victims in black states and the ripping, or black sites I should say, and the ripping of children from their parents' arms and their detention in fetid, overcrowded warehouses, along with the gunning down of unarmed citizens by militarized police in the streets of our urban communities, are the rule of law, we are an exemplar of human rights. So says Chris Hedges. Think of that for a moment. Wrap your mind around that. The rhetoric we use to describe ourselves is so disconnected from the reality that has induced collective schizophrenia. America, as it is discussed in public forums by politicians and academics and the media, is a fantasy, a Disneyfied world of make-believe. The worse it gets, the more we retreat into illusions. The longer we fail to name and confront our physical and moral decay, the more demagogues who peddle illusions and fantasies become empowered. Those who acknowledge the truth, beginning with the stark fact that we are no longer a democracy, wander like ghosts around the edges of society, reviled as enemies of hope. The mania of hope works as an aesthetic. The hope that Donald Trump would moderate his extremism once he was in office, the hope that the adults in the room would manage the White House, the hope that the Mueller report would see Donald disgraced, impeached, and removed from office, the hope that Trump's December 2019 impeachment would lead us and the Senate to convict him and his ouster, the hope that he will be defeated at the polls in November, are psychological exits from the crisis, the collapse of democratic institutions, including the press, the corporate corruption of laws, the electoral politics and norms that once made our imperfect democracy possible. Think of how many times you see a commercial, even a children's commercial, for something that is clearly and patently unhealthy. Do you take the time to see what is the reality of the ingredients and how they might impact a child? Rarely. Some do. More educated people do. But what happens when you've trusted the television network, you've trusted the sponsors, you've trusted the actors, you like them on the big screen, they're convincing and suggesting you should buy something from them. But what happens when what you've invested in, whether it's a car or television or a beer or a big meaty sandwich causes inflammation, distress, and starts the disease process. Do you then say, how could I be this intentionally remiss? What was I afraid of knowing? Was I afraid of looking at the truth? At the beginning of this talk, I mentioned that each day I counsel, when I'm in New York City in my office, but otherwise after by phone, I counsel terminally ill people. I'm not there to judge them. We don't talk about how they got sick. The emphasis upon how to get them well. But if you were in my office and you saw some of the most famous people on the planet, I'm talking about major people in all fields, and you saw them without their makeup artist and their hairstylist and without their designer outfits on, you saw them without their retainers, their publicists, their teams of assistants, you just saw them sitting in a chair, because I don't like anyone to bring anyone but themselves, or a guardian or a spouse with them. You just see them as a human being. Their diseases are very human. How are they supposed to overcome a disease if they live in denial of what the responsibility is? And yet, almost always, the process that led them to that crisis moment was living through illusion. That if you're famous or rich, somehow you're immune from the ravages of time. You're not. Or that if you have enough power, you can buy immortality. You can't. And the rich and powerful have something in common. They rarely, if ever, have the personal discipline to follow a protocol to its conclusion and benefit from it, because their whole life is an entitled life. When you're very successful, you hire people to do everything for you. So we think it's really remarkable. I mean, just did you read about it when a famous person was seen shopping for food in a supermarket? Is it somehow that's beneath them? It's all an illusion. All an illusion. The embrace of collective self-delusion marks the death spasms of all civilizations. We're in the terminal stage right now. We no longer know who we are, what we have become, or how those on the outside see us. It is easier in the short term to retreat inward, to celebrate non-existent virtues and strengths, and wallow in sentimentality and a false optimism. And if you can't succeed at being happy, blame the world. Become a perpetual victim. It's not my fault I'm not happy. It's not my fault I'm not constructive. It's not my fault I'm not disciplined. And then fill in the name. We have now a culture of victimization, of victimhood, as if the virtues of suffering exceed all other virtues. And so it gains very popular opinion that the person who suffers must be right because they suffer. How shallow is that thinking? It was announced last night that Rush Limbaugh has terminal or end-stage advanced cancer. But he's going to get, the same rhetoric you would expect. He's going to do the gallant fight, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm completely on the other side of almost every single thing from Rush Limbaugh. And yet, I would suggest Rush Limbaugh, maybe he has some followers listening to this audience, probably does, ask him to reach out to Utrice Lead. He has end-stage lung cancer. Gee whiz, all that smoking, and somehow he was immune? I remember the time I got a call from a very weak-voiced person. I didn't even know who it was. Barely could hear her. What is it you're saying? I'm in the recovery room of an operation. They opened up my lungs and they closed me back up, saying I have end-stage, stage 4D lung cancer, and there's nothing they can do. And I don't know what to do. Now she was ready to change, not before. So I said, fine, let's go to work. Today, Utrice Lead is alive and well. That was 5 years ago. She also overcame diabetes. She also overcame obesity. She came over multiple diseases in the process. In fact, one day I went down Well, she's at the end of her protocol. I took some people down to a state championship, and she came in. I said, now go win the race. She said, no, I've never raced my life. Well, she went in, and because she was so healthy by doing like 12 miles a day of power walking, she won a gold medal in her age group. That made her feel really good that she achieved something she had never tried in her life. More importantly, she achieved changing so that the disease process did not win out. Maybe Rush needs to hear from Utrice, someone who was where he is at today, even worse. And today, 5 years later, is alive. So let's live with reality, even when it's painful, even when it doesn't suit us, even when it embarrasses us, even when we at times have to go through a self-humiliation to realize how much we've played into our own pain and suffering. Let us stop blaming everyone and everything else in the world and start being a responsible adult. And before we leave today, I said we would hear from Ronald. Ronald, you're on, your turn.
Hello?
Hi, Ronald, you're on the air.
I feel that the election is being rigged. And, for example, the New York Times recently had a separate section called The Choice, where they had 9 Democratic candidates for president, and Tulsi Gabbard was completely omitted, even though those on the list, for example, Cory Booker had already dropped out. Deval Patrick had much less support than Tulsi Gabbard, and he was included. And the media in general, they've totally been ignoring Tulsi Gabbard, even though she's one of the most intelligent, interesting candidates running.
I agree with you, and I thank you for sharing that with us. All of us are concerned. We're concerned because the last thing we want is people cheating, rigging the system to have their pro-corporate, pro-oligarch person in power. Thank you very much. By the way, tonight on the Progressive Commentary Hour, I've got a conversation with Remarkable Mind. You won't want to miss it. It is the great person who has done so much, Diana Bursford Kroger. And we're going to talk about what ancient wisdom educates us about the wisdom of trees and their deep relationship with humanity and its survival in a time of climate change. And tomorrow, we have an interesting guest. We're going to have Professor James Lyons Weiler here to talk about the coronavirus and what he's discovered about it. So I'm setting aside about 35 to 40 minutes just for that, because we need to know at what risk are we as citizens, and what did the Chinese do in editing the original coronavirus, the wild virus, into something that could be used either as a vaccine or as a biological weapon. We don't know. That'll be an interesting conversation. Thank you all for listening, and have a nice day.